The lion's breath was hot on my face. I'm not talking about a zoo lion behind glass. I'm talking about a wild, massive male lion, mane like fire, eyes like molten gold, standing 3 feet from me in the Sudanese desert. So close I could see the scars on his muzzle. So close I could smell the blood on his fur from whatever he'd killed that morning. And he was staring at me. Not past me. At me. My legs were shaking so violently I thought I'd collapse. My mouth was dry as the sand beneath my bare feet. I couldn't scream. Couldn't run. Couldn't breathe. Because behind me, 20 meters back, were the Janjaweed militia fighters who'd been hunting me for 3 days. Guns loaded. Machetes sharp. They'd already killed 12 people from my village. I was supposed to be number 13. But now, they'd stopped. Because the lion had appeared. Out of nowhere. Like he'd materialized from the heat waves shimmering off the desert floor. One moment, I was stumbling through the sand, dehydrated, delirious, praying in broken whispers, Jesus, Jesus, please, I can't run anymore, and the next moment, he was there. The lion turned his massive head away from me. Slowly. Deliberately. And he looked at the militia. Then he roared. I'm telling you, I felt that roar in my chest. It shook the ground. It shook my bones. It shook the air. The sound was so deep, so primal, so impossibly loud that I dropped to my knees. Not in fear. In awe. Because the lion stepped forward. Away from me. Toward the armed men. And he positioned himself between us. Like a wall. Like a guardian. Like something straight out of the book of Daniel. One of the fighters raised his AK-47. I heard the click of the safety releasing. But his hands were trembling. Another fighter started backing up, muttering something in Arabic I couldn't hear over the pounding of my heart. A third one, the leader, the one who'd personally slit my neighbor's throat 2 days earlier, just stared. His face had gone gray. The lion didn't move. He stood there, perfectly still, muscles coiled beneath that golden coat. Watching them. Daring them. For 3 minutes, maybe 5, time felt broken, nobody moved. Then the militia leader spat into the sand, cursed, and barked an order. The men turned. And they left. They left me. They left me, a Christian woman, alone, unarmed, half dead from exhaustion, because a lion told them to. When they disappeared over the ridge, the lion turned back to me. His eyes locked onto mine. And I swear, I saw something in those eyes. Not just animal instinct. Something more. Something divine. He didn't attack. He didn't growl. He just looked at me for one long, impossible moment. Then he turned and walked away, his massive paws silent on the sand, his mane rippling in the hot wind. He walked about 50 meters, laid down in the shade of an acacia tree, and watched me. Like a shepherd watching a sheep. I collapsed onto the sand and wept. Not from fear. From wonder. Because I knew, that lion didn't just happen to be there. God sent him. Jesus sent him. The same Jesus I'd only started praying to 3 weeks earlier, the same Jesus my Muslim father had disowned me for believing in, the same Jesus I'd been too scared to fully trust, he had just saved my life. With a lion. If you think I'm exaggerating, keep watching. If you think miracles are just Bible stories for Sunday school kids, I'm here to tell you, they're not. They're real. I lived one. I'm alive because of one. And that lion? He stayed with me for 3 days. 3 days. Protecting me. Guiding me toward the refugee camp 40 kilometers north. I have witnesses. UN workers. Other refugees. They all saw him. But let me take you back. Because this story, this impossible, terrifying, beautiful story, didn't start with a lion in the Sudan. It started in Egypt. In a palace. Yes, you heard that right. A palace. I grew up in Cairo, in a world most people only see in movies. My father was a high-ranking government official, wealthy, powerful, connected. Our home had marble floors, crystal chandeliers, servants who called me Miss Nadia. I wore designer clothes. I attended private schools. I vacationed in Dubai and Paris. I had everything. Except freedom. Because in my world, in my family, there was one unbreakable rule: Islam was everything. My father prayed 5 times a day without fail. He funded mosques. He quoted the Quran at dinner. And he expected, no, demanded, that his children follow perfectly. I tried. Wallahi, I tried. I wore hijab. I fasted during Ramadan. I memorized surah after surah. I was the perfect Muslim daughter. Until I met Miriam. Miriam was a Coptic Christian woman who worked in our home as a cleaner. She was quiet, gentle, always smiling even though I knew my father treated her like dirt. One day, I found her in the garden, whispering. I thought she was on the phone. But when I got closer, I realized she was praying. Not the formal Arabic prayers I knew. She was talking. Like she was having a conversation with someone invisible. Who are you talking to? I asked. She looked up, startled, then smiled. Jesus, she said simply. I should have walked away. I should have reported her to my father for praying in our home. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, does he answer? Her smile widened. Always. That conversation changed everything. Over the next 6 months, Miriam told me about Jesus. Not in a preachy way. Just stories. How he healed her son when doctors said he'd die. How he provided money for rent the day before eviction. How he gave her peace when her husband was killed by extremists. And something in me, something I'd been ignoring for years, started waking up. Because when I prayed to Allah, it felt like shouting into a void. But when Miriam prayed to Jesus, it felt like love. I started reading the Bible in secret. On my phone. Late at night. Under my blankets like a kid hiding a flashlight. And one night, alone in my palace bedroom, surrounded by luxury I no longer cared about, I whispered the most dangerous prayer of my life. Jesus, if you're real, I want to know you. I didn't know it yet, but that prayer was about to cost me everything. And lead me to a lion in the desert. My father found the Bible on a Thursday morning. I'd hidden it in my closet, tucked inside a hollowed-out copy of a fashion magazine. Stupid, I know. But where else could I hide it? Our home had servants everywhere. Cameras in the hallways. My mother went through my room weekly, looking for anything inappropriate, which in her world meant anything Western, anything immodest, anything that threatened our family's reputation. But she never found it. My father did. I was in the bathroom getting ready for university when I heard him roar my name. Not call. Roar. Nadia. My blood turned to ice. I walked into my bedroom and saw him standing there, holding the Bible in one hand. His face was purple with rage. Veins bulging in his neck. His other hand was clenched into a fist so tight his knuckles had gone white. My mother stood behind him, hand over her mouth, eyes wide with horror. Like I'd murdered someone. What, my father said, his voice shaking, is this? I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. My mind was screaming at me to lie, to say I was studying comparative religion for school, to say Miriam left it there by accident, to say anything. But I didn't. Instead, I heard myself whisper, it's the Bible. The slap came so fast I didn't see it. I just felt my head snap to the side, felt the explosion of pain across my cheek, felt my knees hit the marble floor. You dare, he hissed, bring this filth into my home? He threw the Bible at me. It hit my chest and fell open on the floor. I could see the pages, the Gospel of John, the verses I'd underlined in secret. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. My father kicked it. The pages crumpled under his shoe. How long? He demanded. How long have you been reading this poison? 6 months, I whispered. My mother gasped. My father went very, very still. That stillness was worse than the yelling. You will renounce this, he said quietly. Now. You will say the Shahada. You will beg Allah's forgiveness. And you will never speak of this again. I looked up at him. At this man who'd given me everything. This man I'd spent my whole life trying to please. This man whose approval I'd craved more than air. And I said, I can't. His eyes went black. I've been praying, I continued, my voice shaking but somehow steady. And Jesus answered me. Allah never did. I'm sorry, Baba, but I believe Jesus is. Get out. The words were so cold they burned. Baba. Get. Out. Of. My. House. Please, just listen. He grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the door. My mother was crying now, begging him to stop, but he ignored her. He pulled me down the marble staircase, my feet stumbling, my shoulder screaming in pain. The servants scattered, eyes down, pretending not to see. He threw open the front door and shoved me outside. I fell onto the stone driveway, scraping my palms. When I looked up, he was standing in the doorway, silhouetted by the chandelier light behind him. He looked like a stranger. Cold. Hard. Unmovable. You are no longer my daughter, he said. You are no longer a member of this family. If you ever come back, I will call the police and tell them you stole from us. Do you understand? Baba, please. Do you understand? I nodded, tears streaming down my face. He slammed the door. I sat there on the driveway of my childhood home, wearing pajamas, no shoes, no phone, no money, sobbing so hard I thought I'd vomit. I had nowhere to go. I'd lost everything in 60 seconds. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came 3 days later. I'd been staying with Miriam in her tiny apartment in Shubra, one of Cairo's poorest Christian neighborhoods. She'd taken me in without hesitation, fed me, let me sleep on her couch, prayed with me while I cried myself to sleep every night. On the 3rd day, someone knocked on her door. It was my uncle. My father's younger brother. He'd always been the nice one in the family, the one who snuck me candy as a kid, who asked about my studies, who seemed almost normal compared to my father's rigidity. Nadia, he said gently when Miriam let him in. Can we talk? I should have known better. He sat across from me in Miriam's cramped living room and spoke softly, reasonably. He said my father was hurt but willing to forgive. He said the family missed me. He said if I just came home, apologized, destroyed the Bible, and returned to Islam, everything would go back to normal. I can't, I told him. I can't deny Jesus. His expression changed. The warmth drained from his eyes like water from a broken glass. Nadia, he said, and now his voice was different. Harder. You don't understand what you've done. You've shamed our family. Your father's reputation is being destroyed. People are talking. Politicians he works with are asking questions. How can he run a department if he can't even control his own daughter? Do you understand what that means? I didn't mean to hurt anyone. You converted to Christianity, he spat. In Egypt. In a Muslim family. You might as well have spit on the Quran in public. Miriam stepped forward. She has the right to choose. Shut your mouth, Christian dog, my uncle snapped, not even looking at her. Then back to me, you have 2 options. Come home and fix this. Or face the consequences. What consequences? He leaned forward. Your father has friends. Powerful friends. Judges. Imams. Security officers. 1 phone call, and you'll be arrested for apostasy. 1 phone call, and your Christian friend here loses her job, loses her apartment, maybe loses more than that. My stomach dropped, Don't drag her into this, I whispered. Then come home. I looked at Miriam. She was gripping the back of a chair, her face pale but resolute. She gave me the tiniest shake of her head. Don't do it. I turned back to my uncle. No. He stood up. Then you've chosen. He walked to the door, paused, and looked back. You should leave Cairo, he said. Tonight. Because tomorrow, every mosque in this district will know your name. Every imam will know a Muslim girl abandoned Islam for a carpenter from Nazareth. And you know what happens to apostates in neighborhoods like this. He left. Miriam locked the door behind him and turned to me, her face tight with fear. He's right, she whispered. You have to leave. Now. Where will I go? Anywhere. Sudan. Libya. Ethiopia. Just out of Egypt. I don't have money. I don't have papers. I have a cousin in Khartoum. He can help. But Nadia, you have to go. Tonight. I was shaking. Miriam, I'm scared. She took my hands. They were rough from years of cleaning floors, but warm and steady. Jesus didn't bring you this far to abandon you, she said firmly. He saved you from that palace for a reason. Trust him. 6 hours later, I was on a bus heading south toward the Sudanese border. I had one bag. 50 Egyptian pounds Miriam had scraped together. And a prayer I repeated like a heartbeat. Jesus, I don't know where I'm going, but I trust you. Please don't let me die. I didn't know it yet, but my father had already made the call. By the time the sun rose the next morning, my name was being announced in mosques across Cairo. Nadia Hassan has abandoned Islam. She is an apostate. A betrayer. If you see her, report her. The hunt had begun. And I was running into a war zone. The bus to Sudan smelled like sweat, diesel fuel, and fear. I sat in the back, pressed against the window, watching Cairo disappear behind me. The city lights faded into darkness, then into the empty stretches of desert highway that led south. Every time the bus slowed down, at a checkpoint, at a gas station, at a rest stop, my heart stopped with it. I kept thinking, what if they're looking for me? What if my father called ahead? What if someone recognizes my face? I pulled my hijab lower, wrapped my scarf tighter, made myself as small and invisible as possible. The other passengers didn't talk much. Most were migrant workers, refugees, people fleeing something. We all had that same haunted look, eyes down, shoulders hunched, trying not to be seen. It took 36 hours to reach the border. 36 hours of no sleep. No food except the stale bread Miriam had packed. No bathroom except filthy rest stops where I had to crouch over holes in the ground while cockroaches scattered around my feet. 36 hours of praying. Allah, please protect me. That's what I prayed. Because even though I believed in Jesus now, even though I'd felt his presence that night in my bedroom, even though I'd risked everything to follow him, I still didn't know how to pray to him properly. I'd been Muslim for 22 years. Islamic prayer was the only kind I knew. The rituals. The prostrations. The formal Arabic phrases I'd memorized as a child. So I prayed to Allah. And I heard nothing. Just the roar of the bus engine. Just the snoring of the man next to me. Just the whistle of desert wind through the cracked window. Silence. When we reached the Sudanese border at Wadi Halfa, the Egyptian guards barely looked at my ID. They waved me through with bored expressions. I wanted to cry with relief. But Sudan was worse. So much worse. Miriam's cousin, a Coptic man named Boutros, met me at the bus station in Khartoum. He was kind but nervous. I could see it in the way he kept glancing over his shoulder, in the way he spoke in hushed tones even though we were in a crowd. You can stay with us for a few weeks, he said as we walked through the dusty, chaotic streets. But Nadia, you need to understand, Sudan is not safe for Christians right now. Especially Egyptian Christians. The government here is Islamist. Strict. They enforce Sharia law. If they find out you converted. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Boutros and his wife lived in a tiny concrete house on the outskirts of Khartoum, in a neighborhood that was half Christian, half Muslim. The sectarian tension was so thick you could taste it. Muslim families on one side of the street. Christian families on the other. And in the middle, a no-man's land of suspicion, hostility, and violence waiting to happen. I tried to make myself useful. I cleaned. I cooked. I helped Boutros's wife with her children. I stayed inside as much as possible, barely speaking, barely existing. And I prayed. Every night, in the corner of the small room they'd given me, I knelt on the thin mat and prayed. Allah, I know I've sinned. I know I've turned away from Islam. But please, please, don't abandon me. I'm lost. I'm alone. I'm terrified. Please answer me. Nothing. Just the sound of dogs barking in the street. Just the call to prayer from the mosque 3 blocks away. Just the silence where God's voice should have been. I started to wonder if I'd made a mistake. Maybe Jesus wasn't real. Maybe I'd just been emotional, desperate, looking for something to fill the void my father had left. Maybe I'd destroyed my life for nothing. 3 weeks into my stay, the violence started. It began with graffiti on Christian homes. Slurs. Threats. Kafir. Leave or die. Infidel dogs. Then it escalated to rocks thrown through windows. Then beatings in the streets. Then worse. One morning, I woke up to screaming. I ran outside and saw a crowd gathering 2 houses down. People were shouting, crying, running. Boutros grabbed my arm and pulled me back inside. Don't look, he said, his voice shaking. But I already had. A woman's body lay in the street. Her name was Abir. She was a Christian mother of 3. I'd met her once, she'd given me tea and smiled warmly, even though she had almost nothing. Someone had slit her throat. Why? Because they found a Bible in her home. Her 3 children stood nearby, held back by neighbors, screaming for their mother. The youngest couldn't have been more than 5 years old. He didn't understand. He kept trying to run to her, kept reaching out his little hands, kept crying, "Mama. Mama, wake up." No one helped him. The police came an hour later. They took statements. They nodded. They left. No arrests. No investigation. Just another dead Christian in a country that didn't care. That night, I couldn't pray. I just sat in the dark, staring at the wall, replaying that little boy's screams in my head. Where were you? I whispered into the emptiness. Allah, Jesus, whoever you are, where were you? She believed in you. She had a Bible. She was trying to follow you. And you let her die. You let her children watch. No answer. 2 days later, Boutros sat me down. You can't stay here, he said quietly. It's not safe. For you or for us. The neighbors are asking questions. They've seen you. They're wondering who you are, why you're here. If they find out you're an Egyptian apostate. Where am I supposed to go? My voice cracked. I have nowhere. Nowhere. His wife, Salma, put her hand on mine. Her eyes were wet. There's a refugee camp. Near the border with South Sudan. It's run by the UN. They have food, shelter, protection. It's not much, but it's safer than here, Boutros finished. So I left. Again. The refugee camp was called Yida. A sprawling sea of white tents, barbed wire fences, and 70,000 people who'd lost everything. South Sudanese fleeing civil war. Eritreans fleeing dictatorship. Ethiopians fleeing famine. Syrians fleeing ISIS. Somalis fleeing Al-Shabaab. And me. An Egyptian girl fleeing her own father. I was assigned to tent 4293. I shared it with 6 other women, none of whom spoke Arabic. We communicated in broken English and hand gestures. At night, I could hear children crying, men arguing, women praying in languages I didn't understand. The camp smelled like dust, sewage, and hopelessness. I'd been there 2 weeks when I watched a man die. His name was Garang. South Sudanese. He'd been sick for days, some kind of infection. The camp clinic had no antibiotics. No 4 fluids. Nothing. He lay on a mat outside his tent, shivering in the 100-degree heat, skin burning with fever. His wife knelt beside him, clutching a wooden cross, praying desperately in Dinka. I watched her pray for 3 hours straight. Garang died at sunset. His wife let out a wail so primal, so broken, that every person in a 50-meter radius stopped what they were doing. She collapsed over his body, sobbing, still clutching that cross. And I felt something inside me shatter. That night, surrounded by 70,000 refugees, I had never felt more alone in my life. I crawled into my corner of the tent, pulled my knees to my chest, and I broke. I can't do this anymore. I screamed into my hands, not caring who heard. Allah, Jesus, whoever you are, I can't. I've lost everything. My family, my home, my country, my life. I'm living in a tent in a refugee camp where people die because there's no medicine. I'm surrounded by 70,000 people and I've never been more alone. Tears poured down my face. Snot ran from my nose. I was ugly crying, the kind of crying where you can't breathe, can't think, can't do anything but hurt. Everyone keeps saying you're real. Everyone keeps saying you answer. But I've been praying for months and I hear nothing. Where are you? Where? I don't know how long I cried. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. Eventually, I ran out of tears. I sat there in the dark, empty, hollowed out, with nothing left. And then I remembered something Miriam had told me. The day before I left Cairo, she'd hugged me goodbye and whispered in my ear, when you have nowhere else to turn, when Allah feels silent, when you've tried everything, call on Jesus. Not as a prophet. Not as a teacher. As Lord. As Savior. And He will answer. I'd never done that. I'd prayed to Allah about Jesus. But I'd never prayed directly to Jesus. Because deep down, I was still afraid. Afraid it was shirk. Afraid Allah would punish me. Afraid I'd be struck dead for blasphemy. But sitting there in that tent, in that camp, in that life I didn't recognize, I realized I had nothing left to lose. So I whispered into the darkness. Jesus, if you're really the Son of God, if you really died for me, if you're really alive. I need you. I don't know how to pray to you. I don't know the right words. But I'm done with religion. I'm done with rituals. I just need help. Please. I'm begging you. Answer me. Nothing dramatic happened. No lightning. No voice from heaven. No angels appearing. But I felt something. A warmth. In my chest. Like someone had lit a candle in a dark room. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. Not happiness. Not relief. Just peace. I fell asleep that night with tears still wet on my cheeks. I didn't know it yet, but that simple, broken prayer, Jesus, I need you, had just activated heaven. Because 3 days later, everything changed. The Janjaweed militia came to the camp. And I had to run for my life. The raid happened at dawn. I woke up to gunfire. Not distant gunfire. Close. So close the sound cracked through the air like whips, so close I could hear the bullets punching through tent fabric, so close I could hear people screaming. I bolted upright, my heart slamming against my ribs. The other women in my tent were already scrambling, grabbing children, grabbing bags, grabbing anything they could carry. One woman, a Somali mother with a baby strapped to her back, grabbed my arm and pulled. Run, she screamed in broken English. Janjaweed. Run. I didn't think. I just ran. I stumbled out of the tent into absolute chaos. Hundreds of people were running in every direction. Children crying. Mothers screaming for lost sons and daughters. UN workers yelling into radios. And through it all, the gunfire. Constant. Relentless. I saw them. Men on horseback. Men in pickup trucks with machine guns mounted on the back. Men in desert camouflage, faces wrapped in scarves, eyes cold and dead. Janjaweed. The same militia that had slaughtered hundreds of thousands in Darfur. The same militia that burned villages, raped women, enslaved children. The same militia the Sudanese government denied existed even as they funded them. They were here. In the camp. I saw a UN truck trying to block one of the entrances. A Janjaweed fighter raised his rifle and shot the driver through the windshield. The truck swerved and crashed into a row of tents. People scattered, screaming. Move, someone shoved me from behind. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just followed the crowd, trampling through the narrow paths between tents, jumping over tent ropes, stumbling over bags people had dropped. My lungs burned. My bare feet, I hadn't had time to put on shoes, were already bleeding from rocks and broken glass. Behind me, I heard a woman scream. I glanced back and saw a Janjaweed fighter dragging her by her hair toward a truck. I kept running. I'm not proud of that. But what could I do? I had no weapon. No strength. No power. I just ran. I ran until I reached the edge of the camp, where the tents ended and the desert began. Dozens of others had the same idea, flee into the wilderness. Maybe we could hide. Maybe they wouldn't follow. We were wrong. 2 pickup trucks roared after us, engines screaming, dust clouds exploding behind them. I ran faster. My lungs felt like they were tearing apart. My legs were shaking. My vision was blurring from heat and terror and exhaustion. But I kept running because the alternative was death. The truck split up. One veered left, chasing a group of men. The other came straight for my group, about 20 of us, mostly women and children. We scattered. I broke away from the group and ran toward a cluster of rocky outcroppings about 200 meters away. If I could just reach the rocks, maybe I could hide, maybe I could. A gunshot cracked behind me. Dirt exploded 2 feet to my left. They were shooting at us. At me. I dove behind a boulder, my chest heaving, my whole body shaking so violently I thought I'd shatter. I pressed my back against the hot stone and tried to make myself invisible. I could hear the truck getting closer. The engine growling. The men laughing. Laughing. This was a game to them. I squeezed my eyes shut and did the only thing I could do. I prayed. But this time I didn't pray to Allah. I prayed to Jesus. Jesus, I whispered, my voice cracking. Jesus, please. Please don't let them find me. Please protect me. I know I don't deserve it. I know I've only just started believing in you. But please, please, save me. The truck stopped. I heard boots hitting the ground. Heard men talking in Arabic. Heard them walking, searching, getting closer. Check behind those rocks, one of them said. My blood turned to ice. I was going to die. They were going to find me, and they were going to kill me. Or worse. I pressed my forehead against the rock, tears streaming down my face, and I prayed harder. Jesus, Miriam said you answer. She said you're alive. She said you perform miracles. I don't know if that's true, but I'm begging you, prove it. Show me you're real. Show me you're not just a prophet. Show me you're God. Because if you don't save me right now, I'm dead. Footsteps. 10 feet away. 5 feet. Jesus, I breathed. Into your hands. And then. A shout. From the direction of the camp. Over here. They're over here. The men stopped. How many? 20. Maybe more. The leader cursed. Forget these ones. Let's get the group. The boots turned. Walked away. Back to the truck. The engine roared to life. And they left. They left me. I stayed frozen behind that rock for 10 full minutes, too terrified to move, too shocked to think. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. When I finally found the courage to peek around the boulder, the trucks were gone. Dust settling in the distance. The desert silent again except for the wind. I collapsed onto the sand and sobbed. Not from fear this time. From relief. Because I knew in the deepest part of my soul, that Jesus had just saved me. That shout, that distraction, that perfect timing, it wasn't coincidence. It was divine. Thank you, I whispered into the sand, my tears making dark spots in the dust. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. For the first time since leaving Egypt, I felt it. Not just peace. Not just relief. Hope. Jesus had answered. Not Allah. Jesus. The carpenter from Nazareth. The prophet I'd been taught was just a messenger. The man Christians claimed was God himself. He had saved me. I stayed in the desert for 2 days. I had no food. No water. No shelter. Just the rocks, the scorching sun during the day, and the freezing cold at night. But I wasn't alone. I talked to Jesus. Not formal prayers. Not rituals. Just conversations. Jesus, I'm thirsty. Please help me find water. Jesus, I'm scared. Please stay with me. Jesus, I don't know what to do. Please show me. And he answered. Not with words. But with provision. On the first day, I found a small pool of water trapped in a rock crevice. It was brackish and warm, but it was water. Enough to keep me alive. On the second day, a group of South Sudanese refugees passed nearby. They saw me, shared their bread, and told me about a UN convoy heading east toward Ethiopia. If I could reach the road by dawn, I could catch it. I did. The convoy picked me up at sunrise. A kind Kenyan doctor gave me water, bandaged my feet, and asked what happened. I told him. You're lucky, he said quietly. No, I replied, meeting his eyes. Not lucky. Saved. Jesus saved me. He smiled. Then he must have a plan for you. The convoy dropped me at a transit camp near the Ethiopian border. Another sea of tents. Another waiting room for the displaced. But I was different now. I wasn't running anymore. I was following. I started attending the small Christian gatherings that happened in the camp. Secret meetings, because even in a UN camp, being openly Christian was dangerous. We met in a tent on the far edge, after dark, and we sang hymns in whispers. I didn't know the hymns. I didn't know the prayers. I didn't even own a Bible yet. But I felt God there. In that tent. In those whispered songs. In the hands of the Eritrean woman who held mine while we prayed. In the smile of the Ethiopian pastor who baptized me in a bucket of water and said, "Welcome to the family, sister." I wept through the entire baptism. Because I finally had a family again. Not a palace. Not wealth. Not the approval of my earthly father. But a Father in heaven who loved me. Who saw me. Who'd saved me. For 6 weeks, I lived in that camp in peace. I worked in the food distribution line. I helped the medical tent. I told my story to anyone who would listen. And 3 women, 2 Muslims and 1 atheist, prayed to accept Jesus because of what I shared. I thought maybe this was it. Maybe this was where God wanted me. Maybe I'd spend the rest of my life serving in refugee camps, telling people about the Jesus who answers desperate prayers. But God had other plans. Because on a Tuesday afternoon in late August, a Sudanese man arrived at the camp. He was looking for someone. He was looking for me. I was in the food line when someone grabbed my shoulder. I turned and saw him, tall, muscular, with cold eyes and a radio clipped to his belt. "Nadia Hassan," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. "Who's asking?" "Your father sends his regards." I ran. I dropped the bag of rice I was holding and I sprinted through the camp. Behind me, I heard him shouting into his radio. Heard running footsteps. Heard more men joining the chase. My father had found me. Even here. Even 2,000 kilometers from Cairo. Even in a refugee camp in the middle of nowhere. He'd found me. And he'd sent someone to bring me back. Or kill me. I ran toward the northern fence, the one that faced the open desert. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to get out. I squeezed through a gap in the wire, tearing my clothes, scraping my arms. I heard shouting behind me, camp security trying to stop me, the men chasing me, people yelling in confusion. I didn't stop. I ran into the desert. Again. This time I didn't know where I was going. There was no convoy to catch. No rocks to hide behind. Just endless sand and heat and sky. I ran until my legs gave out. Until I collapsed in the sand, gasping, crying, completely broken. "Jesus!" I screamed into the empty desert. "I can't keep running. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm..." And that's when I heard it. A low, rumbling sound. I looked up, shielding my eyes from the sun. And I saw him. The lion. Standing on a ridge about 50 meters away. Massive. Golden. Mane rippling in the hot wind. Staring directly at me. I need you to understand something. I'd never seen a wild lion before that moment. Not in person. Not outside of a zoo or a documentary. I'd grown up in Cairo, a city of 20 million people, concrete and traffic and smog. The most dangerous animal I'd encountered was a stray dog. But I knew what lions did. They killed. That's what they were made for. Predators. Apex hunters. 400 pounds of muscle, teeth, and claw designed by nature to rip, tear, and consume. And this lion was massive. Even from 50 meters away, I could see the size of him. The breadth of his shoulders. The thickness of his mane, dark at the edges, golden in the center, like a crown of fire. His muscles moved beneath his coat like cables pulling tight. He was magnificent. And he was looking at me like I was prey. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me, "Don't run." Running triggers the chase reflex. You run, you die. So I stayed frozen in the sand, my body locked in pure terror, my eyes glued to the lion. He took a step forward. Then another. He was walking toward me. Not running. Not charging. Just walking. Slow. Deliberate. Like he had all the time in the world. Behind me, I could still hear shouting. The men chasing me were maybe 200 meters back, still searching, still calling out to each other in Arabic. But their voices felt distant now. Unreal. All I could see was the lion. All I could feel was the certainty of death. He closed the distance. 40 meters. 30. 20. I started shaking. Uncontrollable, violent shaking. My teeth were chattering even though it was 110 degrees. Tears streamed down my face. "Jesus," I whispered. "Jesus, please. Please don't let me die like this." The lion stopped. 10 meters away. Close enough that I could see his eyes. Amber. Piercing. Alien. Close enough that I could see the scars on his muzzle, the dried blood on his paws, the way his chest expanded with each breath. Close enough to kill me in 3 seconds. We stared at each other. I don't know for how long. Time felt broken. Stretched. Like the universe had paused just to watch what would happen next. And then the lion's ear swiveled backward. He'd heard the men. I heard them too now, closer than before. Maybe 100 meters. Maybe less. I heard one of them shout, "There. I see her." I was trapped. Lion in front. Killers behind. No escape. This was it. This was how I died. Mauled by a lion or dragged back to my father, either way, I was finished. I closed my eyes and did the only thing I had left. I prayed. But not a desperate prayer. Not a begging prayer. A surrender prayer. "Jesus," I whispered, "if this is where my story ends. I trust you. I don't understand why you brought me this far just to let me die in the desert. But I trust you. If I die today, I die believing you're real. I die believing you saved me. I die believing you love me. So, into your hands. Take me home." Peace washed over me. I know that sounds impossible. I know it sounds insane. But I'm telling you, in that moment, facing death from 2 directions, I felt peace. Because I wasn't alone anymore. Jesus was with me. I opened my eyes. And the lion was moving. But not toward me. He was turning. Slowly, deliberately, he turned his massive body until he was facing the direction the men were coming from. He positioned himself directly between me and them. And he roared. I can't describe that sound. It wasn't just loud. It was seismic. It rattled the ground beneath me. It rattled my bones. It was the sound of something primal, something ancient, something that made every living creature within a kilometer instinctively understand one message. Danger. The shouting stopped. Instantly. I heard panicked Arabic. What was that? A lion. Where? The lion roared again. Longer this time. Deeper. A warning that echoed across the desert like thunder. I heard the men arguing. Heard fear in their voices. Heard their footsteps, running. But not toward me. Away. They were fleeing. The lion stood perfectly still, watching them retreat, his tail flicking slowly back and forth. When the voices faded completely, when the desert fell silent again except for the wind, the lion turned back to me. Those amber eyes locked onto mine. And I knew. I knew this wasn't a coincidence. I knew this wasn't random animal behavior. I knew this lion didn't just happen to be here at the exact moment I needed protection. God sent him. Jesus sent him. The same God who shut the mouths of lions for Daniel had just sent a lion to protect me. Thank you, I whispered, my voice shaking. Thank you, Jesus. The lion blinked slowly. Then he turned and walked about 50 meters away, toward a scraggly acacia tree that provided a small circle of shade. He laid down in the shadow, his massive head resting on his paws. And he watched me. I didn't move for a long time. I just sat there in the sand, trembling, crying, trying to process what had just happened. Eventually, thirst forced me to my feet. I had no water. I'd been running for hours. My lips were cracked and bleeding. My tongue felt like leather. The sun was merciless, hammering down on me like a physical weight. I was going to die of dehydration if I stayed here. But I had no idea which direction to go. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, sand, rocks, more sand. No roads. No landmarks. No hope. I looked at the lion. He was still watching me. Jesus, I said out loud, my voice hoarse, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. Please, help me. The lion stood up. My heart lurched. Was he coming for me now? Had God's protection expired? But he didn't come toward me. He started walking north, away from me. Then he stopped, turned his head, looked back at me. And I understood. He wanted me to follow him. Every rational part of my brain was screaming, no. Absolutely not. Do not follow a wild lion into the desert. But something deeper, something I can only describe as the Holy Spirit, whispered, trust me. So I stood up. On shaking legs, with bleeding feet and cracked lips, I started walking. Following a lion through the Sudanese desert. He stayed about 30 meters ahead of me. Never too close. Never too far. Just, leading. When I stumbled, he stopped and waited until I caught up. When I fell to my knees from exhaustion, he laid down and rested until I could stand again. When the sun began to set and the temperature dropped from unbearable to freezing, he led me to an outcropping of rocks that provided shelter from the wind. I collapsed in that shelter and wept. Not from fear. From AWE. God was shepherding me. Literally. Using a lion as my shepherd. Who are you? I whispered into the darkening sky. What kind of God does this? What kind of savior sends a lion to protect a refugee girl who's only believed in you for a few weeks? I didn't hear an audible answer. But I felt it in my spirit, as clear as if someone had spoken directly into my heart. I am the God who sees you. The God who knows you. The God who will never leave you. I fell asleep crying. When I woke up at dawn, the lion was still there. Lying about 20 feet away, his eyes open, watching. Protecting me. We walked for 3 days. 3 days. I had no food. No water except for one small, miraculous spring the lion led me to on the second day, a tiny trickle of water seeping from between 2 rocks in the middle of nowhere. I drank until my stomach hurt, filled my cupped hands over and over, sobbing with gratitude. The lion drank too. Right beside me. His massive tongue lapping at the water just inches from my hands. I should have been terrified. I wasn't. Because I knew, in a way I can't fully explain, that this lion would not hurt me. That God had appointed him as my guardian. That I was safer with this wild predator than I would be with any human in that desert. On the 3rd day, the lion led me over a ridge. And I saw it. Tents. Hundreds of them. White canvas marked with blue UN logos. Trucks. People. Life. Another refugee camp. This one along the border with South Sudan. I started crying. Again. I seemed to do nothing but cry those 3 days. The lion stopped at the top of the ridge. He turned and looked at me one last time. Those amber eyes met mine, and I swear, I saw something in them. Not just animal intelligence. Something more. Something divine. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for saving me. The lion held my gaze for 3 heartbeats. Then he turned and walked back into the desert. I watched him until he disappeared over the horizon, his golden coat shimmering in the morning heat like a mirage. And then I walked down the ridge toward the camp. When I reached the entrance, a UN security guard stared at me like I was a ghost. Where did you come from? He asked in English. The desert, I said simply. Alone? I smiled. No. Not alone. He radioed for help, and within minutes, I was surrounded by aid workers, given water, given food, taken to the medical tent. A doctor examined me, dehydration, malnutrition, cuts and bruises, blistered feet. But otherwise, miraculously, alive. You walked for 3 days in the desert with no supplies? The doctor asked, incredulous. Yes. How are you alive? I met her eyes. God sent a lion to protect me. She blinked. Paused. Clearly thought I was delirious. A lion? Yes. You're telling me a wild lion escorted you through the desert for 3 days and didn't kill you? That's exactly what I'm telling you. She wrote something on her clipboard. Probably psychological evaluation needed. But I didn't care. Because I knew what I'd seen. I knew what I'd experienced. Jesus had saved me. With a lion. And I was about to discover that dozens of other people had seen him too. The camp was called Yida. Again. I know, I'd been there before. But this was a different section, a newer expansion for South Sudanese refugees fleeing the civil war. The UN had divided it into zones, and I'd been placed in Zone C, far from where I'd stayed months earlier. But word travels fast in refugee camps. Especially word about miracles. Within 24 hours, people were talking about the Egyptian girl who walked with a lion. At first, I didn't understand why. I'd only told the doctor and a few aid workers. I hadn't announced it. I certainly hadn't advertised it. But then a Dinka man named Deng approached me while I was standing in the food distribution line. "You're the one," he said in broken Arabic, his eyes wide. "The one with the lion." I nodded slowly. "How did you?" "I saw you," he interrupted, gripping my arm. 3 days ago. I was hunting. My family, we had no food. I went into the desert looking for anything. Gazelle. Rabbit. Anything. My heart started pounding. I was on the ridge, he continued, his voice rising with excitement, and I saw you. Walking. And behind you, a lion. A massive lion. Following you like a dog follows its master. I thought I was seeing a jinn. A spirit. I thought the sun had cooked my brain. You saw him? I whispered. I saw him. Deng was shouting now, and people were starting to stare. I watched for 10 minutes. The lion walked when you walked. Stopped when you stopped. Protected you. I ran back to camp and told everyone, but nobody believed me. They said I was crazy, that lions don't do that. But you're here. You're alive. It was real. By that evening, 7 more people had come forward. 7. A newer woman named Nailat who'd been collecting firewood on the outskirts of the camp. She'd seen the lion lying in the shade of rocks while I slept nearby. 2 UN workers, a Canadian named Michelle and a Kenyan named James, who'd been doing a perimeter check in a Land Cruiser. They'd stopped on a ridge and watched through binoculars as the lion walked ahead of me, leading me north. An Ethiopian refugee named Dawit who'd been herding goats. He'd seen the lion drinking from the spring beside me. He'd been so terrified he'd abandoned his goats and run. A South Sudanese teenager named Garang. A Somali elder named Abdi. A Congolese woman named Amani. All of them. Witnesses. They'd all seen the lion. They'd all seen me. They'd all watched something that should have been impossible. Lions don't protect humans, Michelle, the Canadian UN worker, said as she sat across from me in the medical tent. Her voice was shaking. I have a degree in wildlife biology. I've worked in East Africa for 6 years. I've seen what lions do to people. They're apex predators. They hunt. They kill. They don't escort people to safety. But you saw it, I said quietly. I saw it, she whispered. With my own eyes. Through binoculars. For 20 minutes. That lion was guiding you. And James saw it too. We both did. And we can't explain it. James nodded, his face serious. I'm a Christian. I believe in miracles. But I've never seen one. Not like this. This is biblical. Word spread beyond the camp. Within a week, a reporter from a Kenyan newspaper arrived, wanting to interview me. Then a blogger from Nairobi. Then a pastor from a church network in Uganda who'd heard the story and traveled 8 hours to meet me. They all asked the same questions. Are you sure it was a lion? Could it have been a dog? A large dog? Could you have been hallucinating from dehydration? And every time, the witnesses backed me up. I saw the lion, Deng would say firmly. I know lions. I grew up hunting lions with my father. That was a male. Fully grown. Wild. I filmed it, Michelle admitted one day, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. Just 10 seconds. From far away. But you can see. She showed me the video. My throat closed up. There I was, a tiny figure in the distance, stumbling through the sand. And behind me, clear as day, was the lion. Golden coat. Dark mane. Massive. Walking. Following me. I haven't shown this to anyone yet, Michelle whispered. Because I don't know how to explain it. If I post this, people will say it's fake. Edited. CGI. But it's not. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. Then tell the truth, I said, meeting her gaze. Tell them what you saw. Let them decide. She posted the video online that night. Within 48 hours, it had 200,000 views. Within a week, 2 million. The comments were exactly what you'd expect, half the people calling it a miracle, half calling it fake, and a small group of wildlife biologists trying to explain it with science. The lion was probably sick or injured. She must have had food that attracted it. This is clearly staged. But they couldn't explain the witnesses. They couldn't explain the 7, no, now 12, people who'd come forward, people from different tribes, different religions, different backgrounds, all saying the same thing. We saw a lion protect that woman. One comment stuck with me. It was from a Muslim man in Egypt, someone who'd seen the video and recognized my name from the mosque announcements back home. He wrote, Nadia Hassan is an apostate. She abandoned Islam. Allah is punishing her by making her live like an animal in the desert. This miracle is a lie from Shaitan. I read that comment sitting in my tent, and I started laughing. Not bitterly. Not angrily. With joy. Because if this was Allah punishing me, if this was Shaitan deceiving me, then I wanted more of it. I wanted more of the God who sent lions to protect his children. I wanted more of the Jesus who answered desperate prayers in impossible ways. I wanted more of this wild, unpredictable, miraculous life of faith. 2 weeks after I arrived at the camp, a delegation came to see me. 5 men. 3 Muslims, 2 Christians. Elders from different sections of the camp. They'd asked to speak with me privately. We sat in a tent used for community meetings. They looked uncomfortable. Nervous. The oldest one, a Somali imam named Sheikh Hassan, spoke first. We have heard the stories, he said carefully in Arabic. About the lion. About the miracle. I nodded. We have spoken to the witnesses. We have seen the video. We have prayed. We have discussed. He paused, glancing at the other men. We need to know the truth. Did this truly happen? Or is this a deception? I looked each man in the eye. It happened, I said firmly. Every word is true. God sent that lion to save me. Not Allah. Jesus. I prayed to Jesus, and he answered. With a miracle. Sheikh Hassan's face tightened. You were Muslim. I was. And you abandoned Islam for this carpenter's son? I did. Why? I leaned forward. Because Allah never answered me. I prayed for years. 5 times a day. I fasted. I memorized Quran. I did everything right. And I heard nothing. Just silence. But the moment I cried out to Jesus, the moment I said, Jesus, help me, he answered. Not with words. With action. With protection. With a lion. One of the Christian elders, a South Sudanese man named Peter, smiled. But Sheikh Hassan looked troubled. This is blasphemy, he said quietly. You claim Jesus is more than a prophet. I don't just claim it, I replied. I know it. Because a prophet doesn't send lions. A prophet doesn't perform miracles 2,000 years after his death. Only God does that. And Jesus, I ask God. The tent went silent. One of the other Muslim men, younger, maybe 40, spoke up. His voice was shaking. I saw the lion, he said. I am Abdul. I did not come forward before because I was afraid. Afraid of what it meant. But I saw him. I was near the northern fence when you arrived. I saw the lion walk with you to the ridge. I saw him stop. I saw him look at you like he knew you. Like he was assigned to you. His eyes filled with tears. I have been Muslim my whole life, Abdul continued. But I have never seen Allah do anything like this. I have never seen a miracle. Not once. But I saw Jesus do this. For you. And I don't know what to do with that. You accept it, I said gently. You accept that Jesus is alive. That he still performs miracles. That he loves you enough to prove himself. But my family will hate you. I know. Mine does too. But my imam will call you an apostate. I know. Mine did too. But Abdul, I interrupted, is it better to have your family's approval and miss God? Or lose everything and gain eternity? He stared at me, tears streaming down his face. Then he fell to his knees. What do I do? He whispered. How do I accept Jesus? Right there. In that tent. In front of the sheikh and the elders and everyone, I led Abdul in the sinner's prayer. Jesus, I believe you are the Son of God. I believe you died for my sins and rose from the dead. I believe you are alive. Forgive me. Save me. I surrender my life to you. When he finished, he looked up at me with the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. I feel it, he whispered. I feel peace. Sheikh Hassan stood abruptly and walked out of the tent without a word. But 2 of the other men stayed. And before the night was over, they prayed too. 3 Muslim men accepted Jesus because of the lion. But that was just the beginning. Over the next month, 17 more people came to faith. 17. Muslims who'd seen the video. Atheists who'd met the witnesses. Skeptics who'd tried to explain it away and couldn't. All of them encountered the same truth. Jesus is alive. And he still does miracles. The UN workers started calling me the Lion Girl. Some people treated me like a celebrity. Others avoided me, afraid I was involved in witchcraft or sorcery. But I didn't care about fame. I cared about one thing. Telling people about the God who saved me. The Jesus who answered. The Savior who sent a lion to prove he's real. Because here's what I learned in that desert. God doesn't just do miracles to save us. He does miracles to prove himself. To show a watching world that he's not a distant deity or a silent prophet or a cosmic force. He's a personal God. A loving Father. A miracle-working Savior. And if he can send a lion to protect a refugee girl who'd only believed in him for a few weeks, he can do anything for you. The interview requests wouldn't stop. Within 2 months, I'd been interviewed by 3 Kenyan newspapers, a South African Christian radio station, a Ugandan television network, and 2 documentary filmmakers who wanted to tell the lion story. I said no to most of them. Not because I didn't want to share what happened, but because I was still trying to process what happened. How do you explain to a journalist that God sent a literal lion to escort you through the desert? How do you make them understand that this wasn't a metaphor, wasn't a parable, wasn't a feeling, it was real? But the witnesses, they understood. Because they'd seen it. One afternoon, a group of them gathered in the community tent. Not because I organized it. I didn't. They came on their own, wanting to talk about what they'd witnessed. Dang was there. Michelle and James, the UN workers. Nailat, the newer woman. Abdul, who'd converted. Dawit, the Ethiopian goat herder. And 3 others I hadn't met yet, People who'd seen the lion from a distance but had been too afraid to come forward until now. 12 witnesses total. 12 people who'd seen the impossible. I need to tell you what happened to me after I saw the lion, Deng said, his voice thick with emotion. I went home that day thinking I was crazy. Thinking the sun had melted my brain. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell anyone except the men in my tent, and they laughed at me. He paused, his hands shaking. But that night, I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was what I'd seen. A lion protecting a human. Not hunting. Not killing. Protecting. And I kept thinking, what kind of God can make a lion obey? Tears filled his eyes. I grew up Christian, he continued. My mother took me to church every Sunday. But when the war came, when my village was burned, when my father was shot in front of me, I stopped believing. I thought, if God is real, if God is good, he would have saved my father. So I stopped praying. Stopped going to church. Stopped believing. He looked at me. But when I saw that lion, something broke open inside me. Because I knew that only God could do that. Not Allah. Not ancestors. Not spirits. Only the God of the Bible. Only Jesus. Because that's the kind of miracle he did when he walked the earth. And if he could still do miracles now, then maybe he hadn't abandoned me. Maybe he'd been there all along, and I just couldn't see him. Deng wiped his eyes. 3 days after I saw you, I went to the church tent. I hadn't been inside a church in 8 years. And I knelt down at the front, and I prayed, Jesus, if you're real, if you sent that lion, then I'm yours again. Forgive me for doubting you. Forgive me for walking away. And I felt it. The same peace my mother used to talk about. I felt him. I was crying now too. I've told 40 people about what I saw, Deng said firmly. 40. And I will tell 40 more. And 40 more after that. Because I am a witness. I saw the power of Jesus with my own eyes. Michelle spoke next. I'm a scientist, she said, her voice measured but emotional. I don't believe things without evidence. I don't accept miracles just because someone says they happened. I need data. I need proof. She pulled out her phone. I have the video. I have GPS coordinates. I have timestamps. I have James as a second witness. I have zoomed-in screenshots showing the lion's markings, proving it was a wild male, not a trained animal. I have everything a skeptic would need to verify this story. She looked around the tent. And I still can't explain it. Scientifically, it's impossible. Lions don't behave this way. Not toward humans. Not ever. But it happened. I saw it. And it's forced me to confront something I've avoided my whole life. Maybe miracles are real. Maybe God is real. Maybe Jesus is real. She took a shaky breath. I'm not ready to convert. Not yet. I have too many questions. But I can't deny what I saw. And I've told my family, my colleagues, everyone, I witnessed something that defies natural explanation. And the only explanation that fits is divine intervention. James, the Kenyan UN worker, nodded. I was a believer before this, he said. But I'd never seen God move supernaturally. I'd read about miracles in the Bible. I'd heard testimonies. But I'd never witnessed one. And when I saw that lion, his voice cracked. I fell on my face in that Land Cruiser and worshipped. Because God proved himself. Not just to Nadia. To me. To anyone watching. Nailat, the newer woman, spoke quietly in her own language. Abdul translated. She says she was Christian before the war. But when soldiers killed her husband and took her son, she stopped believing. She thought God had forgotten her. But when she saw the lion protecting you, she remembered the scripture her grandmother taught her, He will command His angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. She says the lion was an angel. Sent by Jesus. And she has returned to her faith. Abdul himself shared last. I was afraid to tell anyone I converted, he admitted. In this camp, if Muslims find out you left Islam, they kill you. It's not a metaphor. They actually do it. So I kept it secret. I prayed to Jesus in whispers. I hid the Bible I was given. He looked at me with fierce determination. But I can't hide anymore. Because 3 of my friends came to me this week. They'd heard about the lion. They'd seen the video. And they asked me, do you think it's real? And I told them the truth. I said, it's real. I was there. I saw it happen. And I am no longer Muslim because of it. Jesus is Lord. 2 of them walked away. One of them prayed with me. His name is Omar. He accepted Jesus 3 days ago. My heart was pounding. Where is Omar now? I asked. Abdul smiled. Waiting outside. He wants to meet you. I stood immediately. Bring him in. Abdul left and returned moments later with a young Somali man, maybe 25, thin, with nervous eyes. Omar looked terrified. It's okay, I said gently. You're safe here. He nodded but didn't speak. Tell her, Abdul urged. Omar took a shaky breath. I saw the video. Everyone in my section of the camp saw it. Most people said it was fake. Edited. Impossible. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Because my mother used to tell me stories about Isa, Jesus. She said he was more than a prophet. She said he performed miracles. She said he loved people. But my father beat her when she said those things. He said she was blaspheming. His voice broke. My mother died 2 years ago. And before she died, she whispered to me, Omar, find Isa. He is the truth. I didn't understand. But when I saw that video, when I saw the lion, I remembered her words. And I thought, maybe she was right. He looked at me with desperate, hungry eyes. Is he real? Is Jesus real? I took Omar's hands in mine. He's real, I said firmly. He's so real that he sent a lion to save me. He's so real that he changed Abdul's life. He's so real that he answered your mother's prayer by bringing you here, to this tent, to hear the truth. Omar started sobbing. I want to know him, he choked out. I want what my mother had. I want Jesus. We prayed together right there. All of us. 12 witnesses and 1 seeking heart. And when Omar stood up, he was different. The fear was gone. The desperation was gone. In its place, light. Over the next 3 months, the number grew. 17 conversions became 25. 25 became 38. 38 became 52. 52 people, Muslims, atheists, animists, nominal Christians who'd never truly believed, encountered Jesus because of the lion. Some of them met the witnesses and couldn't deny their testimonies. Some of them saw the video and felt the Holy Spirit convict them. Some of them simply heard the story and knew, deep in their spirits, that it was true. But every single one of them had the same realization. If Jesus can send a lion to protect one woman, he is powerful enough to save anyone. The backlash came, of course. Sheikh Hassan, the imam who'd walked out of the meeting, began preaching against me in the mosque tent. He called me a deceiver. A witch. An agent of Shaitan sent to lead Muslims astray. She uses trickery and jinn magic to make you believe lies, he shouted during Friday prayers. There was no lion. It is a video trick. She is an apostate, and anyone who follows her will burn in Jahannam. Some people believed him. One night, someone threw rocks at the tent where the Christian meetings were held. Another night, a group of young men threatened Abdul, telling him they'd kill him if he didn't renounce Jesus. He refused. Do it, then, Abdul said calmly, standing his ground. Kill me. I'll die knowing I'm going to heaven. Can you say the same? They didn't kill him. But they beat him. Badly. When I visited him in the medical tent, his face was swollen, his ribs bruised. I'm sorry, I whispered, crying. This is my fault. If I hadn't. Stop, Abdul interrupted, wincing as he shifted. This is not your fault. This is the cost. Jesus said we'd be persecuted. He said we'd suffer for his name. But he also said, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I am blessed, Nadia. Bruised, but blessed. He smiled through split lips. And you know the best part? One of the men who beat me came back 2 days later. His name is Khalid. He couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Because he kept seeing my face, hearing my words, I'll die knowing I'm going to heaven. It haunted him. So he found me and asked, how can you be so sure? And I told him about Jesus. About the lion. About the hope we have. And he prayed, Nadia. He converted. I stared at him, stunned. You're telling me the man who beat you is now your brother in Christ? Abdul laughed, and immediately regretted it, clutching his ribs. Yes. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Because that is the power of the gospel. It doesn't just save the good people. It saves the persecutors. Just like it saved Paul. Just like it saved me. I left that tent in AWE. Because this wasn't just about a lion anymore. This was about a movement. A movement of testimonies. A movement of conversions. A movement of people encountering the living Christ in the middle of a refugee camp, in the middle of suffering, in the middle of impossibility. And it all started with one desperate prayer in the desert. One broken woman crying out, Jesus, help me. And a lion sent by God to answer. I still live in a refugee camp. Not the same one. I was relocated 6 months ago for security reasons. Too many threats. Too much attention. The UN thought it was safer to move me to a camp closer to the Kenyan border, farther from the Sudanese militias and the extremists who wanted me dead. My tent here is identical to the last one. Canvas walls. Dirt floor. A thin mat to sleep on. A plastic container for water. A small bag with everything I own, 2 changes of clothes, a Bible, and the phone Michelle gave me so I could stay in touch with the witnesses. I have nothing. And I have everything. Because I have Jesus. Every morning, I wake up before dawn and I pray. Not the ritualistic prayers I used to perform, no bowing toward Mecca, no memorized Arabic phrases. Just talking. To the God who listens. Jesus, thank you for another day. Thank you for this tent. Thank you for the food I'll eat today, even though I don't know where it's coming from. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for the lion. Thank you for everything. And he provides. Every single day. Last week, I had no food. The ration distribution had been delayed because of fighting on the main road. People were getting desperate. Fights were breaking out. Children were crying. I prayed, Jesus, I'm hungry. Please help. 2 hours later, a Kenyan aid worker I'd never met knocked on my tent. Are you Nadia? She asked. Yes. She handed me a bag. Someone donated this specifically for you. They saw your story online and wanted to help. Inside the bag, rice, beans, cooking oil, tea, sugar, and a handwritten note that said, God sees you. Keep sharing your testimony. I wept. Because that's what my life is now. A constant stream of God's provision. Manna in the wilderness. Bread from heaven. Sometimes it's food. Sometimes it's money, small amounts sent through mobile transfers from people around the world who've heard my story. Sometimes it's medicine when I'm sick. Sometimes it's a person showing up at exactly the right moment with exactly what I need. It's like living in the book of Acts. Impossible. Miraculous. Daily. I'm not famous. I'm not wealthy. I'm not comfortable. But I am free. Free from the palace that was a prison. Free from the father who chose reputation over his daughter. Free from the religion that offered rules but no relationship. I'm free to love Jesus. To serve Jesus. To tell people about Jesus. And that's what I do. Every day. In this camp, I've started a small gathering. We meet 3 times a week in a tent on the edge of Zone D. It's not official, no signs, no announcements. Just word of mouth. Come hear the Lion Girl's testimony. Come meet the Jesus who sent the lion. People come. Muslims come, curious and cautious, sitting in the back, ready to leave if we say something too offensive. Christians come, hungry for encouragement, desperate to believe that God still moves. Atheists come, skeptical but intrigued, wanting to poke holes in the story. And Jesus meets every single one of them. Last month, a woman named Amina came. Somali. Muslim. Her husband had been killed by Al-Shabaab 3 years ago because he refused to let them recruit his sons. She'd fled to Kenya with her 4 children and had been living in this camp ever since, barely surviving. She sat in the back during my testimony, arms crossed, face hard. When I finished, she stood up. I don't believe you, she said loudly. Lions don't protect people. This is a trick. You want to convert us so you can get more aid from Western organizations. This is a scam. The tent went silent. I didn't get angry. I just looked at her with compassion. Amina, I said gently, I understand why you don't believe. I wouldn't have believed it either if I hadn't lived it. But I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to ask Jesus. Tonight, when you're alone in your tent, when your children are asleep, just say one prayer, Jesus, if you're real, show me. That's it. One prayer. And see what happens. She glared at me. Then she turned and walked out. I thought I'd never see her again. 3 days later, she came back. She walked straight up to me, tears streaming down her face, and collapsed at my feet. He came to me, she sobbed. Jesus came to me. I knelt beside her. What happened? I prayed, she gasped. I didn't believe, but I prayed. I said, Jesus, if you're real, show me. And that night, I had a dream. I saw a man in white. Glowing. Beautiful. And he said my name. He said, Amina, I see you. I see your pain. I see your suffering. And I love you. Come to me. And I woke up knowing, it was him. It was Jesus. She grabbed my hands. I am Muslim. I have been Muslim my whole life. But I want him. I want the Jesus from my dream. The Jesus who sent the lion. The Jesus who sees me. Please, tell me how. Right there, in front of 20 witnesses, Amina prayed to accept Jesus. And when she stood up, she was radiant. I feel light, she whispered, touching her chest. Like something heavy has been lifted off me. That's called freedom, I told her, smiling through tears. Welcome to the family, sister. Amina is now one of the most passionate believers I know. She's told her story to at least 30 people. 5 of them have converted. This is what my life has become. A chain reaction of testimonies. A wildfire of hope. A movement of people encountering the living God in the middle of suffering. But it's not easy. I get threatened regularly. Last month, someone left a note outside my tent, stop preaching or we'll kill you like we killed the others. I showed the note to Jesus. What do? I prayed. And I felt him whisper in my spirit, do you trust me? Yes. Then keep going. So I did. I keep sharing. I keep testifying. I keep telling anyone who will listen about the God who sent a lion to save a refugee girl who'd only believed in him for 3 weeks. Because here's what I've learned. God doesn't just save us for us. He saves us so we can save others. My miracle wasn't just about my survival. It was about proving to a watching world that Jesus is alive, that he still performs miracles, that he loves people enough to intervene in impossible ways. And if the story of a broken Egyptian girl and a wild lion, can lead one person to Jesus, then every moment of suffering was worth it. So let me talk to you now. Yes, you. Watching this video. Listening to my story. Maybe you're Muslim. Maybe you grew up praying to Allah 5 times a day like I did. Maybe you've been told that Jesus was just a prophet, that believing he's the Son of God is shirk, that Christianity is a Western religion for infidels. I was told the same things. But I'm here to tell you, it's not true. Jesus is not just a prophet. He is the Son of God. He is God himself. And he proved it by rising from the dead 2,000 years ago, and by sending a lion to protect me in 2023. Allah never answered my prayers. Not once. But Jesus answered the first time I called his name. And he will answer you. I know you're afraid. I know your family will disown you. I know your community will reject you. I know you might lose everything. I lost everything too. But I gained Jesus. And he is worth more than palaces, more than family approval, more than safety, more than life itself. Maybe you're an atheist. Maybe you think miracles are myths. Maybe you think this whole story is fabricated, exaggerated, impossible. I have witnesses. 12 of them. Some Muslim. Some Christian. Some who had no reason to lie. UN workers with degrees. Video evidence. GPS coordinates. You can try to explain it away. You can say the lion was sick, or trained, or confused. But deep down, you know. You know that wild lions don't escort humans through the desert for 3 days. You know that wild lions don't position themselves as shields between humans and danger. You know that what happened to me defies natural explanation. And the only explanation that fits is divine intervention. So I'm asking you, what if you're wrong? What if God is real? What if Jesus is alive? What if miracles do still happen? What if the thing keeping you from heaven is simply your pride, your refusal to admit that maybe, just maybe, there's a God who loves you enough to prove himself? Maybe you're a Christian. Maybe you've believed in Jesus your whole life. Maybe you go to church, read your Bible, pray before meals. But maybe you've never seen God move. Maybe your faith feels stale. Routine. Religious. Maybe you're wondering, does God still do miracles? Or did they end with the apostles? I'm here to tell you, they didn't end. God is still moving. Jesus is still performing miracles. The Holy Spirit is still active. But maybe you've been praying safe prayers. Comfortable prayers. Prayers that don't require God to show up supernaturally. What if you prayed dangerous prayers? Jesus, I need a miracle. I need you to prove you're real. I need you to move in impossible ways. What if you trusted him enough to follow him into the desert, into the unknown, believing that he'll meet you there? Stop living like God is dead. He's not. He's alive. And he's waiting for you to call his name. Here's what I want you to do right now. If you're watching this and you don't know Jesus, if you've never surrendered your life to him, I want you to pray this prayer with me. Jesus, I don't know if you're real. But I want to know. I'm tired of empty religion. I'm tired of unanswered prayers. I'm tired of feeling alone. If you're truly the Son of God, if you truly died for my sins and rose from the dead, if you're truly alive, I'm asking you to prove it. Save me. Forgive me. Change me. I surrender my life to you. I choose you. In your name, Jesus. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, if you meant it, something just happened in the spiritual realm. Angels are rejoicing. Heaven is celebrating. Because you just became a child of God. You just joined the family I'm part of. The family that includes Abdul, and Amina, and Omar, and 52 others who encountered Jesus because of a lion in the desert. Welcome home, brother. Welcome home, sister. Now here's what you do next: tell someone. Find a church. Get a Bible. Start reading the Gospel of John. Start praying, not religious prayers, but real conversations with Jesus. And expect miracles. Because the same God who sent a lion to protect me can send anything to protect you, provide for you, guide you, save you. He is not limited by your circumstances. He is not stopped by your enemies. He is not afraid of your impossibilities. He is God. And if He did it for me, a broken refugee girl with nothing, He will do it for you. Don't wait for a militia to chase you into the desert. Don't wait for your life to fall apart. Don't wait for a lion to appear before you believe. Call on Jesus now. Trust Him now. Follow Him now. Because He is alive. He is real. And He is waiting to write your miracle story. My name is Nadia Hassan. I am a refugee. I am an exile. I am an apostate in the eyes of my family. But I am a daughter of the Most High God. And I am a witness. I saw a lion obey Jesus. And if you give Him your life, you'll see Him move in your story too. Don't give up. Don't lose hope. Jesus is coming. And He's bringing miracles with Him.